Today, I'm boarding Norwegian's brand new cruise ship, the Norwegian Aqua, for her very first voyage, a 9-day transatlantic journey from Southampton to New York. But this wasn't just any cruise. We're talking stormy seas, a medical emergency, a last-minute itinerary change, and a surprise cruise extension, which meant they had to figure out how to feed 2,800 people for an extra 3 days. I'll show you exactly what it's like to live on board this floating city for over a week. Everything from jaw-dropping attractions to award-winning dining. But here's the question. With all the chaos and all the hype, does Norwegian Aqua actually deliver? Let's find out. This transatlantic voyage kicked off in sunny Southampton. Living in England, I took the train down to Southampton Central, then grabbed a 5-minute taxi to the port. Aqua was docked at the brand new Horizon terminal, which was constructed at the cost of $55 million and built in partnership with NCL. And that almost sounds cheap when you think the Norwegian Aqua cost roughly $850 million. Now, when you book a maiden voyage, you expect a few surprises along the way, but I didn't think it would start before I even stepped on board. As I got out of the taxi, I was greeted by crowds of passengers waiting outside the terminal. It felt a bit chaotic. Baggage drop-off was all the way at one end, while the queue to check in on board started at the other, and there wasn't a ton of staff giving direction. Embarkation day was delayed, but honestly, I expected that. It is Aqua's very first sailing after all. What none of us were expecting though was a major change, not just to the final destination, but to the length of the cruise itself. Originally, this was supposed to be a 7-night journey ending in Boston on April the 4th, but while I was waiting in the queue, I overheard people in front of me talking about a last-minute itinerary change. Apparently, we were now heading to New York instead, and not arriving until April the 7th. Yep, the cruise had been extended by 3 days, and we were only finding out an hour before boarding. As you can imagine, that threw a lot of people into panic mode. The queue became a blur of passengers just trying to arrange jobs, childcare, flights, hotels. Some had gotten the email that morning, but some, like me, hadn't opened the email. So the first we heard about this was when we were standing in the line waiting to get on board, and we were handed a letter with this information on. So there were some people who couldn't even go on the cruise. They had to leave right then and there. It was definitely stressful for a lot of people, and let's just say Norwegian's compensation policy didn't exactly win anyone over, but I'll get into that later. After about an hour and a half of waiting, I finally made it through security and up to the check-in desk, where I was asked to show my ESTA, passport, boarding pass and credit card. Once I got to the desk, everything actually ran pretty smoothly, and to be fair, I was on board Aqua by 2 p.m, which honestly wasn't too bad considering the earlier chaos. After scanning my fresh cruise card on deck 6, I stepped into the heart of the ship, the stunning 3-deck high atrium. It's absolutely gorgeous, bright, open, and definitely sets the tone. But first things first, we've got to check out our cabin on deck 9. Now, here's something that surprised me. Aqua only has 2 sets of elevators. Usually cruise ships will have a forward, midship and aft set of elevators, but instead of having 3 sets of 6 elevators, Aqua decided to have 2 sets of 12. I was expecting long waits, but honestly, they weren't too busy at all. I chose a balcony cabin located at deck 9 forward. It's a spacious double cabin with a sleek modern design, and while there's a lot I really like about the cabin, there are a few things that could be better. So let's start with what I love. The vanity is super well equipped with USB-A and USB-C ports, and of course standard charging outlets. Not just at the desk, but also conveniently on both sides of the bed. I also love the mirror and those little shelves underneath it. It's perfect for keeping small essentials within reach. The TV comes preloaded with movies, which is a nice touch for downtime. And I'm also a big fan of the touchpad temperature controls and the built-in do not disturb button. It's those little techie upgrades that make the stay feel extra smooth. Now onto the bathroom. It's a great size, especially for a cruise ship. There's even a little drawer in here, which I really appreciated because when I go cruising with a friend and we're staying in the same cabin, we both have makeup and toiletries. So this means that one person can have the vanity in the room and one person can do their makeup in the bathroom and actually have a place to keep it. The lighting is bright, flattering, and the sink was really large. And I love how the shower door slides inward because it keeps the floor nice and dry and also helps to maximize space. But now for the not so great bits. The wardrobe doors were a bit stiff, but probably just because it's a brand new ship, so they will likely ease up over time, but they were quite difficult to open and close. And the toilet paper is thin, like really thin. And I get it, cruise ship plumbing is sensitive, believe me, I understand why the toilet paper is thin, but I was not the only person that noticed this. As for storage, I found the hanging space totally fine. Of course, I was traveling solo and did manage to use all of the hangers because as much as I want to be, I'm not a light packer. So if that sounds like you, it might be worth taking a few extra hangers. The blackout curtains worked beautifully, and I really appreciated the subtle night lights. They gave off just enough glow to move around at night without fumbling in the dark. There was bottled water in the fridge, but of course that comes with an extra charge, so I was glad that I bought my reusable water bottle and I could fill it up for free at the onboard refill stations. All in all, it's a very comfortable cabin with thoughtful touches, just a few quirks here and there. But now we've had a look around and I've managed to drop my bags off, let's go up to the pool deck because the sail away party is kicking off. And it looks like I'm not the only one excited for our 9-day voyage across the Atlantic. As the sun began to set and the music turned up, it was finally time for us to set sail. A few guests were dancing and soaking in the moment, but I'll be honest, I didn't stick around too long because those chilly English winds were picking up, so it was time to go inside. So I have just got back from the sail away party, which was great, but it is time to start thinking about dinner, so I'm going to hop in the shower and get changed. But before I go to dinner, I'm going to go to the solo meetup and see what's happening there, because I am doing this cruise by myself, so it'll be really nice to see if I can make some friends, or it is going to be a very quiet 9 days. Finding your way around a brand new cruise ship is always a bit of an adventure and a bit of a challenge. I thought I gave myself plenty of time to find Improv, the venue where the solo traveller meetup was being held. Turns out I was wrong. I arrived 15 minutes late, but to my delight, I barely had time to sit down because a group of fellow solo travellers must have seen the slightly lost look on my face and kindly invited me to join them for dinner. So I didn't hesitate. The 5 of us headed to the Commodore, one of Aqua's main dining rooms. The food was delicious, the service was quick, and best of all, I had made some friends on my very first day on board, which I was chuffed about. The Welcome Aboard show in the Aqua Theatre was definitely worth checking out, especially if you're first time sailing with NCL. But as you guys know, embarkation day is usually a really long one, especially with all of the surprises we had today, so it's time for bed. After a blissful night's sleep, it was time to kick off the first full day of the cruise. And as a self-confessed coffee addict, there was really only one way to start the morning: by getting my fix. So I headed to the local bar and grill to sit down for breakfast. While I was waiting for a table, only about 10 minutes, I struck up a lovely conversation with 2 fellow cruisers, Linda and Kathy, and ended up having breakfast with them. The menu here is pretty similar to what's offered in Hudsons, which is the other main sit-down breakfast spot on board. Over the course of the cruise, I had breakfast at Hudsons, Surfside and Indulge, and I have to say, while Hudsons and the local offer nearly identical menus, the food at the local was just better. No idea why, but it consistently tasted fresher and the service was noticeably quicker. At Hudson's, because the venue is so large, I found myself feeling a bit forgotten at times. Indulge, on the other hand, is very quiet in the mornings, probably because they offer a more limited breakfast selection. Surfside is the complete opposite. It's very lively and can get pretty busy, but with all the venues, there is something for everyone. After finishing up breakfast with Linda and Kathy, it's the perfect time to explore the ship some more and actually get our bearings. I think we should start with the outer decks, and starting with what everyone has been most excited for, the Aqua Slide coaster. First hybrid roller coaster and water slide, and trust me, it absolutely lives up to the hype. I am going to try this later in the cruise though. Now, decks 18, 19 and 20 at the aft of the ship are dedicated to fun. Alongside the Aqua coaster, you'll also find the Drop, a 10-story free fall slide that plunges you all the way to deck 8. So I think we should try this, don't you? I am just about to try the Drop on Norwegian Aqua. I am beyond excited and a little nervous. Oh my God, I'm so scared.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Over the cruise, I did the Drop a few times. It's actually a pretty smooth ride, so it's not too rough on the back. But when the floor disappears beneath you, yeah, it's definitely a thrill. You'll also find the Glow Court here, an interactive sports court with a responsive LED floor that reacts to movement. Now, something you'll be glad to know, the only activity here with an extra charge is tea time, the ship's mini golf course. It's $5 per person. So I got together with my solo cruisers gang on day 6 of the cruise and we had a go at playing mini golf, and it was so much fun, and each hole is themed after a different country. And the only rule is you have to finish on New York. Our favourite hole was Jamaica, where you're asked a true or false trivia question. What's really clever is that the golf balls are RFID chipped, so when you place your ball on the starting pad and sink it into the hole, it automatically tracks your score. Now, heading down to deck 17, you'll find the main pool located between Surfside Buffet and the observation lounge. The pool area is super modern and I loved the sun loungers with built-in pillows. Very comfy. That said, the pool didn't see too much action during the cruise. One reason was because it was quite rocky at times, so the pool had been closed off. Going forward and up to deck 18, there's the kids splash zone and plenty of space for extra sunbathing. But for now, let's head inside because I'm freezing and all that exploring has definitely worked up an appetite. Since I was already on deck 17, it made sense to head to the buffet for lunch. Surfside Cafe is located on the port side of the ship. And I'll be honest, considering this ship can carry around 3,500, I was surprised at how compact the buffet area felt. It might have seemed more crowded than usual because the chilly weather drove everyone inside, so the outdoor seating at Surfside wasn't really being used. So I imagine once the ship is sailing in the Caribbean, people will naturally spread out more, and that could ease up some of the congestion. That said, Surfside Cafe definitely delivers on the variety. It's got a casual, convenient vibe with buffet-style service and a wide range of choices like fresh salads, carved meats, global dishes and themed dinners, and I especially became a fan of the banana bread. Very good. However, I do think the buffet size could be an issue once Aqua starts doing its regular Caribbean itinerary, even if people start to use the outside seating. It just feels too small for the ship's size. I get that Norwegian have diversified their dining options, so for breakfast and lunch you can go to the local bar and grill, Indulge, Hudsons and Surfside, so there are 4 venues that you can eat at, but I still think Surfside is just a little bit too small. Now, they do offer extra seating in the speciality restaurants that are opposite the Surfside Cafe, which is Palomar and Sukhothai. But even with that extra seating, the size of the buffet might be a pinch point. But I'll be curious to see how it gets on when it starts doing regular sailings. Now, if you've been around here for a while, then you will know I spent years working in the shops on board cruise ships, so I was definitely curious to see what Norwegian had to offer when it came to the retail department. The company that looks after the shops on board is Dufree, which is a travel retailer that operates shops on many different cruise lines. So on deck 8, you'll find the luxury boutiques. Think high-end watches, fine jewellery and top-tier cosmetics. It's a beautifully laid out space if you're in the mood to browse and treat yourself. Then down to deck 7, you'll arrive at the Gateway. This area feels like a mini shopping promenade with popular cruise fashion, the Norwegian merch store, of course, and the liquor shop. There's even a selection of pre-loved designer handbags and sunglasses. And this is all in the atrium area, and the atrium spans across decks 6, 7 and 8. So on deck 6, it's home to the casino and the Penrose bar. Deck 8, you've got the luxury shops and the Belvedere bar. And deck 7, this is where all of the action is. Not only will you find guest services and cruise next, excursions and Wi-Fi, but also Starbucks. And let's be real, coffee is life, so it only makes sense that it's in the heart of the ship. Now, just behind Starbucks is my favourite spot on the entire ship. It's a kind of cozy conservatory seating area. It's filled with comfy chairs, a great view, and this calm, peaceful energy that makes it ideal for relaxing. Unfortunately, it did not take long for others to figure out how great this spot was, but I did get lucky and managed to snag a spot one of the afternoons. So after wandering around, catching up with a friend and buying a magnet to add to my very serious magnet collection, I parked myself there with a coffee in hand and just sat. 9 days at sea gives you the perfect excuse just to slow down and enjoy. A quick outfit change later and it was time for the second solo meetup of the trip. Tonight's vibe was karaoke in the Sid Norman's Poorhouse, a fan favourite across the NCL fleet, so I've been told. So a few of the brave solo travellers had a go on the mic, and after the 30-minute solo meetup wrapped up, the 5 of us solo sailors headed to Indulge for a more relaxed dinner. I was genuinely excited to try this spot because I've heard nothing but good reviews about Indulge, and spoiler alert, it lived up to the buzz. Oh, did it live up to the buzz. So Indulge is included in your cruise fare and it is super chilled. You can find a seat wherever you like and order straight from the tablet on the table. They've got a variety of cuisines to choose from, and the service, your food is usually out in under 10 minutes. And one thing I loved was the flexibility. You don't have to guess how hungry you're going to be. You just order as you go, which means less food waste and more chances to try new things. Plus, dining with other people is half the fun because we all got to sneak a peek at each other's dishes and try bites here and there. I actually came back to Indulge several times during the cruise, especially for lunch, because it's the perfect hybrid between the casual vibe of Surfside Cafe and the more formal feel of Hudson's dining room. And even when it got busy, the layout made it feel still open and relaxed. It was never cramped. And for the foodies out there, my personal favourite was the chicken tikka masala. Genuinely one of the best I've ever had, not just on a cruise ship, like ever. And the dan dan noodles. Oh my god. You have to try it. It's amazing. Once we'd wrapped up dinner, we were all buzzing with excitement to head over to Revolution, which is NCL's newest show inspired by the music of Prince. Revolution is an interactive show, and if you want to be right in the action, you'll be standing on deck 6. If you'd prefer to sit and watch, you'll need to go to deck 7 and 8. But a quick heads up, seats fill up really fast, so you'll want to arrive at least 30 minutes before showtime if you want a good spot. We, however, rocked up just 5 minutes before the show started, so we were directed to deck 6. As for the show itself, my entire solo group agreed Revolution was a total hit. The energy was electric, the music was iconic, the dancers, oh my gosh, absolutely phenomenal. The choreography was intense. I was out of breath just watching them, and after all that excitement, I was more than ready to crash, so I headed to bed. Day 3 at sea started with breakfast in Hudson's, which was the largest main dining room on board. Now, the service here was a little on the slower side, but it actually led to some interesting conversations at the table, specifically about the compensation NCL offered for the disruption of the cruise. A lot of guests felt like it just wasn't enough, especially considering how stressful it was for some people to rearrange travel plans. Norwegian offered 300 in compensation, but only if your travel insurance had already denied your claim, which left a lot of people feeling stuck. On embarkation day, they also gave everyone 30 minutes of free internet to help with rebooking flights, but honestly, it wasn't enough. Like, what are you gonna do with 30 minutes free internet? You can't even research flights in 30 minutes, let alone book a flight and change your hotel and, you know, call everyone that you need to call to let them know that actually you're going to be home 3 days later than you originally planned. After breakfast, I was absolutely delighted to find a free spot in my favourite little seating nook. So I set up camp there for a bit and got some work done. There are so many beautiful seating areas on Aqua, and something I really appreciated is how many of them have plug sockets nearby. So if you're like me and want to get some work done on your laptop or just need to charge your phone while soaking in the ambiance, you're covered. A few of my favourite chill spots, definitely the Metropolitan Lounge. I just love how it's decorated and it's so chilled. And I'm also obsessed with these pink outdoor seats outside of Los Lobos. And if the weather had been better, I would have definitely posted up here for the day, but it was just too chilly. And speaking of outside, let's talk about the promenade deck. One of the features that blew me away was these infinity pools on either side of the promenade deck. I love how there's nothing obstructing the view, just ocean as far as the eye can see. The design is stunning, with the day beds lining the pools and the little moat-like water feature flowing around them. I definitely see these being insanely popular once the ship is sailing in the Caribbean. You can walk a full loop around the promenade deck, and along the way you'll also spot some fun little touches like the abstract blue seat sculpture, which honestly I don't think serves any purpose, but hey, it's cool. The glass walkway over the water and a beautiful seating area at the back that's part of the Indulge food hall. Right behind that is the bar with an amazing view overlooking the ship's wake, and honestly, it's the perfect sunset spot. Oh, and I managed to sneak a peek at the Vibe Beach Club. Absolutely gorgeous. It's sleek, it's open, and just has that I'm on vacation feel. You do have to pay extra to enter the beach club, but it is a really, really beautiful space. Another place I found myself gravitating towards was the observation lounge. Now, I've heard from other cruisers that it's smaller than ones on other NCL ships, especially compared to the Breakaway Plus class, which usually sails to places like Alaska. But it makes sense though. This ship is designed for the Caribbean, so the lounge might not get as much traffic. But it makes sense that the observation lounge would be smaller because this ship is going to be sailing in the Caribbean, so the observation lounge probably isn't going to see that much traffic. It was a little bit small for this transatlantic cruise though. It was always full. It's a very, very, very popular place to be because the weather wasn't that great and it's a lovely place to sit. But of course, they can't design a ship just for one cruise. There's a full bar, and between 2:30 and 5 p.m. they serve light snacks, little sandwiches, cookies, scones, and fun fact, this is the only place on the ship that I managed to find a cookie. After all that exploring, a truly grueling day, obviously I'm joking, I headed back to my cabin for a bit of downtime, and then I started to get ready for that evening's dinner. One I was really excited about because tonight I was dining with my solo gang at Sukhothai, the newest restaurant on board NCL. Thai food is hands down my favourite cuisine, so the moment I heard Sukhothai was on board, I was instantly excited. Also because Thai is a brand new restaurant on NCL, so no other ship has it yet. The standouts was the cashew chicken. It was absolutely incredible. The salt and pepper prawns were amazing, and the lychee sorbet, that was the unanimous favourite. Now, did the food completely blow me away in Sukhothai? Not quite, but was it a really enjoyable dining experience overall? Absolutely. The food was lovely and the atmosphere was great too. Once we'd finished dinner, we headed to the theatre to catch Rumours, the show inspired by the music of Fleetwood Mac. Now, the show is usually performed in Sid Norman's Poorhouse, which is a much smaller venue. Because of that, it's often packed and queues are out the door, and many people don't even get to see it. So there was a real buzz around the fact that Rumours was being performed in the main theatre this time. And let me tell you, every seat was filled. The show itself, sensational. The vocalists were pitch perfect and the energy throughout the performance was amazing. They had the crowd completely hooked, and by the end, the standing ovation was more than well deserved. So if you get the opportunity to see Rumours, you gotta go. So I headed to bed that night with Fleetwood Mac in my head, and I wasn't mad about it. Day 4 of the cruise had an alarming start. Literally. I woke up to a medical emergency alarm going off in my cabin.
Attention all crew. All medical, stretcher, fire, area control.
And those medical announcements continued to come through the cabin, informing us that there was going to be a medical emergency. And being the nosy Parker that I am, I quickly got ready and made my way up to the open deck to see what was going on. Turns out I wasn't the only nosy Parker on board, but I have to say Norwegian Cruise Line did an excellent job at handling the situation. Crew members gently directed everyone to areas of the ship where we couldn't get a clear view, ensuring the patient's privacy was fully respected. It showed just how seriously the crew take these situations. Now, just to clarify, this ship doesn't have a helipad, so I noticed the crew members clearing the sunbeds from the pool deck, and that's where the helicopter flew in to safely embark the patient on board. The helicopter actually circled the ship about 5 times before making the transfer, likely assessing wind conditions and turbulence, and to make sure everything was safe and smooth for the patient. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find out what happened to the patient, but my prayers are with them and I hope that they're making a speedy recovery. Although the morning started off sunny, the skies quickly darkened and sent everyone indoors. Now, like most cruise ships, every evening you'll find the daily planner delivered to your stateroom. It lists everything happening the next day, from entertainment to classes to dining hours. Some ships offer more activities than others, but I have to say, this ship really delivered a fantastic variety. One of the most popular daytime events was the progressive trivia. If you're not familiar, it's a trivia competition that spans multiple days. You stick with the same team throughout the cruise and your points add up daily. So it does attract a bit of a competitive crowd, in a fun way of course. Plus the usual lineup of daily activities kept everything buzzing. So whether you wanted to be up doing something or just take it easy, there was something for everyone. I do want to take a moment to give a huge shout out to the crew though. Not only is this the ship's very first sailing, which is stressful enough, but the team has also had to navigate itinerary changes and unexpected challenges along the way. Those 12-hour shifts are no joke, but every crew member I spoke to was friendly, welcoming and genuinely excited to be there. Even on day 8 at sea, when they could have understandably been worn out and fed up, they still showed up with smiles. So I just want to say they're truly amazing. Something funny I did learn while chatting to the crew though was, among the crew, NCL stands for no crew life, because I did find out that NCL are very strict when it comes to crew privileges. So most crew members are not allowed in guest areas unless they're working, which is difficult. I have worked on ships where there's limited access to passenger areas when you're not at work, and it does make life a little bit more difficult. So it would be nice to see NCL improve what's going on for the crew. That being said, I did find out there were some improvements. So for crew members who are sharing a cabin, instead of having bunk beds, they now have 2 beds side by side. And oh my God, I cannot tell you how much of a difference this will make. I mean, the crew members were telling me it made a massive difference, but having slept in many bunk beds, yeah, I can imagine having 2 beds side by side makes a massive difference, because you can actually sit up in bed, you can use your bed as a couch, and also instead of having TVs, every crew member gets an iPad in their cabin. They don't get to keep the iPad is with the cabin, but it just means that you can like move around. Anyway, enough about the crew, but you know I like to give you a crew insight. Towards the second half of the cruise, I am very happy to report that the weather finally warmed up. Now, when I say warmed up, I don't mean tropical heat, but it had gotten to around 10 degrees Celsius, which was warm enough to brave the Aqua coaster. This ride hadn't been open for most of the cruise. Although it had been scheduled to open at different times throughout the trip, the wind and the cold always shut it down. So when it actually opened at 10 AM, by 10:30, I was in my swimsuit queuing up. I thought I'd feel totally at home in just my swimsuit on the water slide, but interestingly, most people opted for waterproof shoes and water resistant clothing. Some even wore regular leggings and tops. So if you're planning to try it yourself, this might be something you want to keep in mind. I went up to the coaster in my dress and flip-flops. I left them at the side like everybody else and climbed on board. The ride itself takes 2 people at a time and is essentially a big loop. So you exit right where you get on. The queue actually wasn't too bad. Although the sun was shining, the wind was still icy. So I think that scared a few people off. But once the ship is sailing in the Caribbean, I imagine the line will be much longer for this. They say the ride can get through 200 people an hour, but I didn't feel like we were moving at that pace. In terms of the experience, the lift hill is just like a mini roller coaster, and that initial shoot off is so exhilarating. And me, Sarah and Erin actually said it was a bit like the lazy river once you got off that initial descent. So it's a really nice balance of thrill and chill. One thing I did notice that might be a problem is, as I said, everyone went up to the coaster in clothing and shoes, and there was no place to store it, so everyone was just leaving their stuff on the side, which wasn't a problem because there was a limited amount of people queuing up to try the coaster. But in the Caribbean, when there's loads of people going up to try the coaster, I do think they need to have some sort of shelving unit where people can put their shoes while they go on the roller coaster. Otherwise, I think a lot of people are going to end up losing stuff. And after going on the coaster, I was frozen. So we made a beeline for the jacuzzis by the pool to thaw out. And let me tell you, they were like a bath. And honestly, in the Caribbean, they probably would be way too hot, but for the Transatlantic, they were all right. Another thrill-seeking spot on the ship is the game zone. To get there, you pass this massive model of the Aqua cruise ship. Most of the arcade-style games are between $1 to $2, but I had my eye on the VR ride, which was $5 per go. Zara and I decided to try the Dragon roller coaster VR experience, and honestly, it was a lot of fun. Now, this was actually my first time ever doing VR, so I didn't have anything to compare it to, but I thought it felt pretty realistic, minus the occasional extinct animal popping up. The graphics were a little blurry at times, but good enough to make me need to sit down for a few minutes afterwards, honestly. In the evening, me and the Aqua gang headed to Los Lobos, the Mexican restaurant everyone was raving about, and for very good reason. Chef's kiss. Amazing. I especially loved the way that they made the guacamole right there in front of you, and you could completely customize it. So some people went for spicy guacamole. It just made the whole experience feel extra personal. I ordered the shrimp fajitas, and there were a few burrito orders floating around the table, and let's just say a lot of food got left behind. We were so full. It was really, really, truly unbelievable, and the best meal I had on board. Now, getting restaurant bookings on this cruise, it's not easy. A lot of people have booked their dining reservation months before even stepping on board. Now, personally, I wasn't able to access the NCL app before the cruise, so even if I'd wanted to pre-book dining, I couldn't. So here's a little word of warning. If you're sailing on the ship, book your specialty restaurants before you even get on board. Or if for any reason you can't do this in advance, make it the first thing you do once you get on board the ship, because trust me, it'll save you a lot of stress and scrambling later on. And speaking of food, by the final 3 days of the cruise, I definitely started to notice a change in portion sizes. Not so much in the specialty restaurants, since I only dined there once, but in places like Hudsons, the main dining room. For example, on day 3, I ordered a salmon and cream cheese bagel, and it came generously slathered with cream cheese and a healthy portion of salmon. Fast forward to day 8, same order, but the cream cheese was spread very thin and the salmon was more of a garnish than a layer. This isn't a criticism, believe it or not. I actually think Norwegian did an amazing job stretching their food supply to cover an extra 3 days that weren't originally planned. Sure, portions were smaller, but everything still tasted just as good. Though honestly, after 10 days of cruise food, the shrinking portion sizes, kind of a blessing. I really did think that after 9 full sea days, I would be so ready to disembark the cruise ship. I have only done transatlantics when I've been working on board, so I really didn't know what to expect of this. But I think the combination of great entertainment, beautiful spaces to relax in comfortably, lots of different venues to experience, and the fact that I got a little solo cruisers gang really made the time go faster. And something I have to mention about this ship is how great it is for solo travel. One thing I really appreciated was that NCL hosted solo meetups every single night of the cruise. That's such a game changer. Some cruise lines only do one solo event at the start, which puts so much pressure on that one moment. Like, if you don't make a friend there, that's it. So if you're a solo traveller and you haven't tried Norwegian yet, I'd highly recommend it. And to be honest, that pretty much sums up how I feel about the cruise as a whole. I didn't know what to expect. It was my first time cruising with Norwegian, my first transatlantic as a passenger, not knowing how good the solo scene would actually be. So I boarded with fairly low expectations, just hoping to enjoy the ship. Even with all of the hiccups, it was a fantastic experience, and I am so glad that I went. The spaces on board are stunning, and I love how they managed to make such a big ship feel intimate. The food, fabulous. Honestly, some of the best I've ever had on a mass market cruise line. The service outside of the itinerary change was top notch. The entertainment kept me smiling night after night, so the only thing that could have made this cruise better was a little bit more sunshine. But even without it, it was great. But I am so excited for you to try this ship. I really think you are going to love her, but I would love to know what you think about this ship and the cruise in the comments down below. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. And I also want to say thank you to my travel agent, because when shit hit the fan, they were really good about handling everything. So thank you to Cruises It, and thank you to my Aqua gang, and thank you to you guys for watching. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next video.